Stephen, give us an idea of where the pressure points are right now, 5 months into this pandemic in the United States, or recognition of it at least, both geographically and from a product point of view.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. The last 6 months have been filled with a lot of sadness, excitement, tears, fear, lots of education, lots of resilience. And at the forefront of everything that certainly we've done has been the safety of our teams, and we've done that quite successfully. Our business, as you might imagine, has accelerated dramatically since the beginning of COVID in March.
Yep.
As consumers stayed home. And as you mentioned earlier, we're the largest U.S.
Right, and then the pressure points, Stephen, both product-wise and geographically?
Yeah, so listen, the supply chain is secure. UNFI has the most diverse supplier, the most distribution centers, so product is flowing. The stores have product. Obviously, the categories that you're all familiar with going to the store, not finding paper products in particular, they're going to continue to be short probably through the first part of calendar 21. But generally, the supply chain works, the manufacturers are working, and the stores are stocked.
What could be, I mean, obviously in the early innings of the pandemic, we're worried about the food supply chain simply because workers might get ill, and this could be the impact. So as we head into the fall, into the winter, and we really don't know what the situation will be, what precautions can a company like yours take to try to mitigate the worst of that?
Yeah, so, we've thought about COVID really in two ways, and that's pre-vaccine and post-vaccine. We really don't think about it in terms of phases, and we haven't taken our foot off the gas at all. We adopted a really rigid protocol around COVID at the very beginning, which included safety in our DCs, incentive payments to our frontline workers, and a lot more. And we have kept our folks safe, and we will continue to do that as the most important thing on our agenda. As it relates to the fall, I think it's going to be a busy holiday, and there are going to be some products that are going to be short as people stay home and they travel less. But again, supply chain's working, product is getting out to the stores, and I think consumers are going to be pretty happy with what they find.
What's your baseline scenario in terms of the economy, Stephen, in terms of people being able to actually buy your products, even if they're stocked everywhere across the country? If there's no fiscal stimulus to come, will they even be able to? What are you modelling in right now?
Yeah, so we certainly believe that for most consumers, we're in a recession, and that recession is likely to continue for at least 18 months, which is a really good tailwind for us. But there are 50 million Americans facing hunger every day, and we're closely aligned with every state, the Canadian government, to make sure that we can get affordable food products into the communities that need it the most. We awarded over $2 million last year, over 10 million pounds of food into food banks. We're going to continue to do that. We have to be, and we will be, at the forefront of ensuring that affordable food is available, especially to the communities that need it the most.
How important will it be for governments to play a role? You mentioned Canada, because in this country we do have a program where the government said we don't want you crushing your eggs or running your milk into the sewers. We will take it off your hands at a fair price. We will redistribute it to people in need. Is there a role for government in this to make sure that food does get to those who need it the most?
Well, I think stimulus will be helpful, and we have every expectation that's likely going to happen at some point. Certainly SNAP benefits in the U.S. And the Canadian counterpart are very important to a lot of people, and that those funds have continued to flow. But we're really not dependent upon the government to have any influence on our own supply chain or our ability to get food into the communities that need it the most. The regional and local independents are more important than ever. And they're seeing growth that they haven't seen in a decade, and that's likely to stay. As for a lot of people, it's their only visit outside the home. They're going to the local community food store to buy everything that they need for a week. And we believe that that's going to continue. And those stores, by the way, are really embedded in the communities as well.
What about competition? You've had a nice pop to the stock since the beginning of the recognition of the pandemic. You're up, 190% or so, but, you've been pretty stagnant for a while. If people have been sort of stockpiling or, buying in and don't continue to do that, how do you plan on keeping your stock price elevated even as competition comes in to try and attack you?
Yeah, so going into the COVID, we had completed a really large acquisition of SuperValue, which is a conventional wholesaler, and we saw the benefit of having made that acquisition while COVID was going on, because our supplier and our customer base is just so diverse, and we had products that could support just about every retailer in the U.S. And in Canada, and so we have that acquisition really integrated and completed, and COVID certainly has helped, but it's not the only impetus to what's going to continue to propel UNFI forward over the next couple of years. We're pretty excited about talking a lot more about that once we do our next earnings release at the end of September. But it's still a pretty fragmented industry. It's a huge industry. It's $1 trillion at retail. So there's lots of opportunity for us to grow with or without inflation and with or without a growth in our existing customer base.